Here at N9000 Plus, we want to be the very best.
Like no one ever was.
To watch this movie is our real test. To review it is our cause. Join us, Ken!
Welcome to N9000 Plus's spoiler review of Detective Pikachu. We are the nerds of N9000 Plus.
I'm John.
I'm Ken.
And I'm Jazz. Before we get further into our review, don't forget to subscribe and follow us. And there's a little bell you can click on so you can get alerted. You can stay up to date on all of our stuff.
If you haven't seen the movie, go see it, because as Jazz just said, this is a spoiler review. We will not be doing a spoiler-free review. So just, make sure you see the movie before you watch our video.
However, our friends over at Anthony A. Perez and Todd Foolery will be taking care of the spoiler-free reviews. Anthony and Todd are absolutely fantastic. They are naturals, and very, very happy that I've gotten to know them recently.
Definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, and just as a note, Todd's last name isn't actually Foolery. He's just playing on the words Tom Foolery.
So don't be fooled.
Yeah, so don't be fooled. Yeah, it's Todd Jackson over at Todd Foolery and Anthony A. Perez by his self-name.
So about this movie, I actually liked it. It had my attention for most of it, because the first part was kind of slow, and it was, for me, it was a little bit slow, and it took a little bit to get into like the meat of things. And as we talked about before, you could kind of see it coming, but to be fair, it is mainly a kids movie. A lot of the stuff that we as adults probably were like, oh, we saw that coming. Your nephews, I don't know if they really saw that.
We talked about it in the car, and they did not really latch on to the obvious beats that were coming. That's exactly the thing. It's a very traditional film in many ways. Yep. But then, of course, visually, it's non-traditional and is wonderful, actually. But I think the key thing for me is, as a 33-year-old man who was never into Pokemon growing up, it didn't give me that factor. Like when I watch an Avengers movie, it's like, even if it's not great or something, any of those movies, those Marvel movies, there's something that works for me because I love those characters. So I didn't have that. So the movie was just kind of like fine, but the kids absolutely loved it. I think that's an important distinction to make, that it's not really for us.
The graphics were absolutely fantastic. The attention to detail, the little hair fibers on Pikachu, because a lot of people look at the cartoon and say, oh, it's just a flat, solid object. It's like, no, if this thing is a mouse, it's got to have fur. If it's a duck, it's got to have feathers.
Kind of reminded me of actually Rocket.
Yep. Yes.
That kind of believability. Yep. When you see like whole characters that have to interact with live action characters, that's a very tough thing to do.
It could have been a real world situation. It could have been any location on Earth, but they stuck with their world, and it's a realistic world. It's world building. It's the equivalent, I don't think you guys saw it, but Zootopia. A very excellent example of world building.
And they did the same thing here. I agree. I don't really like that the dad lived. And this is a major spoiler. I don't like that they did it so that he was kind of hiding in the Pikachu's body and then he lived afterwards. I would have liked it if he either stayed in the Pikachu and he just continued to talk, or if it was just like he went on to whatever the next piece.
Essentially, Ryan Reynolds doesn't play Detective Pikachu. No. He plays Justice Smith's character, Tim's father. And Mewtwo transported his consciousness, soul,
something like that,
into his own Pikachu to solve this crime. The process also wiped Pikachu's memory, or the dad's memory, technically. So he's just a Pikachu who's talking. But for me, the misstep there is, while I can assume it's because he's his dad or Mewtwo made it happen, why could nobody else understand him?
Exactly. Yeah. The Mewtwo said something about that they were connected. That might be the only reason why he could understand them.
Yeah, and plot hole, I think it's a plot hole. How come Tim didn't recognize his dad's voice?
The problem is, it may not be a plot hole, but they didn't give us enough information. So, and I'm usually not that kind of person. I don't want a movie to over-explain, especially a fantastical film like this. Over-explanation, which there was plenty of early, which is part of why I didn't love the early part of the film. But they did need to explain a little better about him and his father's relationship. Like, we know he was fairly young when they stopped being around each other, but it's like there's no phone calls. Like, they could have just given us some information so that we know he hasn't heard his dad's voice since he was like 5 or 6 or whatever.
Oh, okay.
But they didn't do that.
I called from the beginning the talking was because of the dad. I didn't call from the beginning that the Mewtwo was on their side, though.
I think the basic like ladder structure, if you will, is like kid hates Pokemon because he's estranged from his father. Father dies, at least allegedly, and the kid goes to the city to just kind of like close out the stuff. Like go to the apartment, clean it out, like all that stuff. And when he gets there, he meets a little detective Pikachu that was his dad's partner, but was also declared dead. So he starts to realize there's more to this story. And then it's really, from there, it's just about finding his dad. And the reporter.
April, basically. That's what she felt like.
That's pretty much the whole movie. Yeah. There's a little bit of a subplot that's actually more of the main plot. But since the main plot is to find his dad, it's sort of a subplot dealing with who's behind all these machinations, which I called immediately. You can't show me Bill Nighy
and not think he's not the bad guy.
3 traditions from actors. They're kind of like their MOs. Bill Nighy playing a bad guy, playing a great bad guy. Ken Watanabe playing the wise good guy. And of course, Ryan Reynolds playing the smartass. Justice Smith, I felt bad for him when it came to Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. He got criticized quite a bit for that film because a lot of people felt like his character was annoying, nobody could connect with him. But if you saw him in The Get Down, and if you see him in this film, the kid has chops. He's a fantastic actor.
He really is.
The conclusion to that is,
that was just that movie.
It was just that movie. It's the source material.
And here's how I can prove why the worst thing in the film is what I think it is.
Okay.
We have almost not talked about the love interest reporter. Very underutilized. She had almost nothing to do. She was just there to be something for Tim to look at. And I think that's a real shame.
It was, because they could have done better.
Mistake. Well, because the actress is good. Yeah. And she's supposed to be like a headstrong reporter. And so they could have played her that way. But I just felt like the whole time I'm thinking, is she going to do anything?
Jazz, 7,000. John, 6,500. Ken, 6,500. Average, 6,667.
Thank you so much for watching our spoiler review of Pokemon Detective Pikachu. Make sure to leave your comments down below. If you are new to this channel, consider subscribing and sharing this video. As always, you can watch new videos from N9000 Plus every Friday and new videos right now.